Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And who's going to take attendance? I will. I'll take care of it. I'm here. John. Hello, sir.
I don't think you have full attention.
It's all right. It's all right. All right. Alan, you're here. Greg is here. Not here right now. Michelle. Jim is. You said Jim is not coming.
Jim is not coming. He didn't come up.
Stephanie is not coming. Jen is not here. Lisa?
Here.
Hi. Here. Michael's here. Julie is not here. And Peter is here. I believe we have a quorum. And the next, right? And the next item on the agenda is a tour of Big Free.
Follow that lady.
We're all yours.
So let's go on a tour. It's really not functioning, it's not a functioning kitchen, but we use it for serving. And we're hoping to do some renovations in the summer to accommodate a young lady that's going to be coming our way. So we're going to be cutting this kitchen sort of in half to make access for a changing station as well as a bathroom. We hope to put in a window here for serving, which will be easy, because there'll be a wall here, and that way the kids won't come in and come out. They'll serve through the window. And I think that'll make a whole lot of sense.
And that's in the budget, right? Because I remember you talking to Don about that, right?
Yeah, there's quite a bit that needs to get done.
Right.
Yeah, I know a lot.
And it's dark, so we don't get to see where the pathway to the playground. Oh, sorry.
Well, we can
That's
peek
big.
out.
That's a big item.
So I can show you how that's going to work.
That would be great. I think that would be useful because I know we're going to be talking about it at the budget presentation.
Yeah. So there are two exits that can go out this way. The portables are here, but the plan that I thought about in terms of handicapped accessibility to the playground would be to create a path that goes around these buildings because
the playground is directly...
The playground's directly over here, but if you look at the terrain, it's not as steep, and it makes a whole lot of sense.
Okay.
So the pathway will go around those two buildings and then ease their way down.
And this would make sense. This is... Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does.
That's good.
Now, the other thing you have to think about is there's steps, out of every exit, and you'll see that in all the classrooms, so they're going to have to go away.
Do the,
Yeah.
do the doors require the push button open?
Yes. Yes.
So is this the first child in a wheelchair that we've had here? It's hard to believe that we haven't been...
Thank you.
Before this, children that have had injuries that are short term.
No.
But this is our first.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we're not
So if we look right here, just so you get a sense, as we take away this doorway and put a wall here, we're going to create a new doorway here so that there's accessibility to go in and out.
Okay.
Now, will that be a dedicated for that one child, or will it be a handicapped accessible bathroom that anyone?
Well, it will be handicapped accessible,
Okay.
but initially we'll have to see how that goes. This child needs a lot of care, and so my suspicion is right now that'll be hers.
Right.
We also have another handicapped bathroom.
Right there. Okay.
Right there. See the lavatory
So
there?
if there was like a child with a short term,
could easily use
that one.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kathy, is she coming in as a kindergartner?
She is, yes. We're excited about that. What's going to happen next year with this particular room, though, is where the copier is, all that stuff is going to have to come in here, so it'll be sort of a workstation for teachers. You can see a lot of makerspace.
Where the copier is...
In the kitchen area.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
And this is our kindergarten.
So Kathy, that exterior exit,
Same
that's
as-
emergency for
It is, and it
fire
does
drills?
have, yes, and
It does have a step,
It
so that
does.
would have to be
Every
addressed.
doorway down here has a step.
Right.
So even in the next room, which is used as the art room, the music room, makerspace room, that also has a step too.
Now, would we have to address it every year that she moves up?
Yeah, we
And
can
that's
do
how we
some
handle
this
it?
year,
Yeah.
you know, in those
Right.
important rooms where she's going to be.
Right.
And then, so we are probably going to be removing this.
I was
Oh, really?
Ours came down.
Yeah, I took it down over at Burnham also. The problem that I'm seeing with it, it takes up a lot of space, but some of our children are tall and they hit their heads on here. I had a couple of kids last year that had that issue, so. And mobility-wise, it does take up a lot of space, so you'd be
It's
surprised.
gonna be the last to go, huh?
Yeah, it's the last to go.
It's too bad.
I'm being honest with all of you, it really
Yeah.
has to, it's time, yeah.
It is. I know.
Just can't
It's
put
one
some
of
foam
those.
up there for the head bonking?
No, and you know, when you have a child who can't go up there,
It's
it's not,
Right.
it's not
That's
appropriate.
It's like
true.
having
Good think about
cupcakes in
that.
front of the kid with
Yeah.
allergies.
Well, you could have a,
Yeah.
put that in the budget, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's a
but it'll be amazing to see this room. It'll really open it up.
It
Because I
will.
also measured all the rooms to see which is the largest room. And this is, believe it or not, when you see the art room, music room, and makerspace room, you think that's larger. It's just because of, you know, not having such a big thing in it. So
Would the child's wheelchair fit at one of these current desks?
I'm
or-
not really sure. I'd have to look at that.
Right. Because we may need new furniture then too.
Well, for her, I mean, we have a taller one over here that was made.
Right.
So, depending upon her needs, but we'll be looking at that.
Sure.
Yeah. Our makerspace room as well as our music room. So it's on a rotating basis. So when art's here, music is someplace else, and then we flip-flop. Instrumental. I have music Thursdays.
Meaning like in another building, not somewhere.
not in here. No.
Yeah, right.
Right. We rotate them.
And it's makerspace.
Yes, it's the only space that I have left.
So can we all just peek?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, technically, that meeting was over 15 minutes ago. So.
Get it moving.
Serving those spaces, redirect our return line into the graphics robotics area, and then use the existing system to
There you go.
maintain that.
This does look pretty big, though, doesn't it?
It does, and it's smaller than the next room over. This room over here is first grade.
Just because
Never, ever seen an art room.
doesn't mean we can't go in.
Until today.
Well, right. Well, and actually, I've seen
Oh,
that
this is
room
a good sized room, too. This is actually not as big as the kindergarten room, huh?
The other rooms are exactly the same,
okay.
but Rita's room, the kindergarten room, is slightly bigger. Not a lot, but slightly bigger, because I toyed with switching rooms if I had to.
Right.
But I think we can certainly make it work. And again, all these exits have the steps, so eventually they're all gonna have to be,
I've read some.
yeah.
Other than fire drills, do kids ever use those exits?
My teachers do use them. They like to take them
It's not going to
outside
set
to
an
their-
alarm off if I open
No,
it.
no. They like to take them out for motor breaks, so it's a nice, easy access right out the field's beautiful.
mean,
It's
thankfully
beautiful,
they're
you know,
all
and it's
just
nice to
like
go straight.
Very low,
Like
yeah.
a 4-inch step. It's not like a, a
No,
big.
it's the same all the way around.
Yeah, so they can just
Even,
replace that with a.
Yeah.
Right, even at the end of the hallway,
So
which would
so
have
we
to
can
be
leave to get to our
done.
cars, by the way. We can leave to get to our cars.
Yeah.
You
So-
can.
I know me too.
Yes.
To go up and down, so that's gonna stay
Well, note to
as
self.
is.
The elevator?
Elevator.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So this exit will have to be fixed too, because if there's a fire and you can't get out your room, you've got to be able to get out at the both ends of the building. This is second grade. She's been here for a couple of years. You'll
Yes,
see her.
I've
You'll
seen
see her.
I think I have.
Yeah. Her children are here, so when you go to the stations, you'll get to see her.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
No, they work together. So same thing here. She'll put them in groups, or very often they're working on the floor in groups.
Okay.
Yeah. Or the desks turn around.
Right.
This is third grade.
Very similar. Yeah, they're all very similar. On this.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll go
Four
upstairs.
desks in a row.
No, well, she turns them around, and they sit in groups here, and then sometimes they turn around so that there's 5 together. So depending upon what they're doing.
At the end of the day, they'll line them all back up again. Good little soldiers.
Underneath the, yeah.
It is, depending upon if you talk about with one child.
Right.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
I like that.
The other thing I like, we're just going to go to the right a little bit. a little bit of history. I really love sharing this with folks.
Yeah, that time.
That's Herbie Booth, and that's the one-room schoolhouse, which is still in existence today. It's the 4th grade classroom.
She's been added on to a little bit.
A little bit at a time, right?
Yeah.
So we'll head down this way so you can see the
I bet they
one-room
couldn't keep the
schoolhouse.
cupola up. That's pretty cool.
Right, right.
Good for you. So we're gonna come down here. So this is the one-room schoolhouse.
This is it, folks.
Yep, this is where it all began. Now this is tricky.
Yeah.
So it'll be something I'll be thinking about
In a couple years to figure
in
it
a few
out.
years.
They do have small lifts
They do.
that I've seen.
Yeah, I in my last building I had that.
Right.
So we think the one-room schoolhouse faced this way because there's an exit out that way. So this is the original. And it has a little tiny bathroom, which we do not use. That's in there. A little tiny bathroom. It's little. But the kids love it. They laugh about it, you know. But we don't use it.
That's probably, if you're really good, I'll show you the bathroom someday.
Yeah, yeah.
Popcorn seating is holding up so well.
That must have gone in the 70s.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is an interesting little workroom. What are they?
Sometimes, sometimes some activities in here if someone needs
I mean,
to
it's
work
good
with someone.
storage.
It's great storage.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's
what
a-
we tend to use it for. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Ann.
No, it's great to have this. Where are we?
So you're facing the back of the building.
Yeah. What's the little fence right there? Is this like a yard that we actually
There's a little courtyard. Yes, I have a picnic table down there. And the garden club planted daffodils. Everybody had a daffodil that they planted in the spring. It's really pretty.
That's nice.
It's a nice little garden that was put there before me, but it's in memory of a few folks that had passed away.
Now, was this used by all the teachers or just
No, the
this
4th
one
grade.
lucky teacher?
4th and 5th grade sometimes use it.
Oh, the
We're the few that are up here.
well, there's a lab. Everybody has their Chromebooks, and there's a computer lab here, isn't there?
Yes, I'm gonna show that to you.
Reminds me, that probably was a cloakroom, I bet, back in the day. They used to have cloakrooms.
So we use every space in our building. This used to be an exit, but our speech pathologist uses it.
Interesting. It says basement.
Yes, because the basement door.
Weird.
Yeah.
Well, and the fire marshal's okay?
Fire marshal's fine with it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you can't get any closer to an exit.
No, you can't.
So much better. That's what's this?
Our Chromebooks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Charging. Charging.
Charging. Yeah, we have one downstairs too in that little room downstairs.
Yeah, I
And
saw
this
it.
this is our 5th grade classroom.
I like the little table outside.
Isn't she fancy? Oh, that's Amy for you. Always a little nice extra touch like that. That's very nice.
Oh, this is great.
That's fine.
Yeah, it works sometimes, let me tell you.
Yeah.
When you have somebody
Get it
who's
out of your
got a lot of
system.
energy.
Get it out of your system.
They love it.
is
They do
great.
love it.
Wow. This is one of the only classrooms that has all of the wiggle seats and the balls. and
Yeah,
the-
we are
Is
focused
it
on
spec-
Burnham School and trying to do the alternative seating and then eventually coming here. So
Okay, so
she
that's-
just likes to, she likes it.
You found a critter
Okay.
here.
And,
Yeah, I did.
So
Yeah,
it's,
It's
the
not
training
because
desk.
this specific
Yeah.
class really requires it.
no. She
They're
started last year.
Okay.
She really likes,
It's great. They wrote their
they're really wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah. Which one do you have? Oh,
Peyton?
there's, what are they? You have to see, you have to read this, it's hysterical.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Read his sorry.
Sorry.
They're so cute. They're really wonderful.
Does the lizard have a name?
Great. I bet it does. I know, we can ask Amy
We donated
downstairs.
that lizard. I wonder if it's the same one.
You were like, please take it away.
Please. I know. Oh, these are great.
Aren't they cute?
He loves to be kind of a juvenile.
That's what made me
me crack up. I was laughing. It was really funny.
Oh my gosh.
They are really wonderful.
Gosh. What a character.
It's great. Isn't it cute?
really funny.
Isn't it cute? I know. They're so great.
That is really
All right, I'll show you our library, our computer lab. And of course, we have our town library across the street, so if you ever need anything, they're excellent about either if a class wants to go over or, you know, sending over books that we might need. Roxy?
It's a star, but like, isn't that funny?
Oh. Right in here is our little library. It's small, but she has about 6,000 volumes here. Like Burnham's library.
6,000 more.
Yeah. Crams them in.
It's nice. It's a nice space.
It is a nice
Big,
space.
high ceilings. It's
Yeah.
great.
What do you know about Roxy the Star?
Roxy was here before me, so.
Oh, wow.
She's the mascot.
She's the mascot.
So that's why she has her own star in the
That's
solar system?
right.
Okay.
That's
All right,
right.
Roxbury, Roxy, Birdie,
Yeah.
Burnham,
Yeah.
What's Washington's?
Washington.
Eagle.
Washi?
Washi.
Eagle and the flyer. It's called right flyer.
I don't know, but I know it's an eagle, right?
Yeah. And I think
So here's our computer lab.
flyer.
No,
I don't
it's
remember.
modernized.
And again, you all know that every third year, we're lucky enough to get new computers, so it's a rotating schedule. And we have our 3D printer over there too, that the kids can access. So great.
Nice, very
Oh,
nice.
we had 3D print.
Very nice.
That's why our taxes went up 200%.
And then I have just
Oh,
two
printing
more
money.
rooms over here. So these two rooms, this is a resource room where my special educator services some children. And this room is, I have a half-time math intervention teacher, and she's also half-time reading. So that's her station.
Is it like reading in the afternoon and math in the morning? or
You
is
know,
it
I don't want
flip-flop?
to say it's that way. It
Yeah.
depends upon need. So we look at the students, so there might be, there,
Room. Just room.
room, yes.
Room.
109.
Got that creepy book about the.
That's on all of them. So it depends upon need. So I might have more kids that might need reading versus. I got the numbers off though. If you noticed.
I see that. You can see kind of like where they were before.
Right.
I go, like.
Oh, and that was our teacher's room. I don't know if you want to peek in. Yeah, this is our teacher's room.
Got an old-fashioned blackboard.
We do.
Haven't seen one of these in a while.
I know. This is our teacher's room.
This is nice.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, it works. Yeah, it does.
Nice and toasty in here?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, does this room doesn't have a sink,
No.
but that little room down on the end does. That's so funny. That's all right. All right.
Do you want to come in?
No, that's okay. Wait, what was this? Did we go in that?
That's the nurse's office, I
That's
think,
the
right?
nurse's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right here. Do you want to? Come on, we'll walk
Should we finish the
through.
tour? May as well see the last of the.
There we go. So this is a copy room, and we use it as a conference room. This is my office. We also hold meetings in there too. And this is our nurse's station.
So when students need to come to the nurse, they go there.
They go both ways.
Both ways.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Little ones like to go by and say hi to Laura.
I get that.
I'm sick, but not really, you know?
Right.
And then this is a little, just sort of a workroom, you know, extra storage. We have some office supplies in here.
Good.
And that's our school.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Looks great.
Good evening, everyone. All right, students. Hello. I want to thank the board for allowing us to showcase our school and for going on a tour. Tonight's presentation is about Project Lead the Way. And as you all know, Project Lead the Way is district-wide. So you're going to see a piece of it here at Booth Free School, but know that it's very similar in all 3 schools. Due to the fact that it's a district initiative, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa DeBrito.
Good evening, everyone. Is this okay here? This is where she, okay. As Ms. Colella explained, with the transition of next generation science standards, I really researched what would be an engineering and science program that would stimulate students. And Project Lead the Way definitely always stands out for me. We do have it at the middle school as an engineering program at the middle level, so it was fantastic when they added the K-5 progression. So you're going to see a video, but you're also going to be able to experience some of the activities that students have been engaged in. And so for 2nd grade that's here this evening, I just want to let you know that they're learning about erosion. And they learned about the weather and how it implicates and changes the earth. And then they measure the amount of erosion due to some natural disaster or just natural occurring weather patterns. In 3rd grade, it's elementary physics, and so the students are really learning about motion and forces, and they become engineers in their classrooms because they were able to make simple and compound machines, so that'll be exciting as well. And in 4th grade, also physics, where they learned about potential and kinetic energy, and students, you'll see that ramp back there, they were demoing for us while the board was on tour, but don't worry, you'll get a chance to see it as well. And they're really looking at how they can have a vehicle go down the ramp and still protect the passenger. And just so that you know, the passenger is a fragile egg. And all went well, it was very safe, but it's all what happens during a collision and how does that impact those in a vehicle. So very exciting, engaging opportunities for students. So I know that you probably have all met Mrs. Zoller, who is our STEM enrichment teacher throughout the district, who went to training this summer. She's going to come up and just say a few words before we show the presentation video and have you visit with the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So over the summer, Mrs. DeBrito sent myself and an elementary teacher from each building for training in Project Lead the Way. I attended a 3-day program, they attended a 2-day program, and then when we came back to school in August and September, and then somewhat into September and October, I trained all the teachers on it. The biggest change I think that we see with Project Lead the Way is that the kids are problem-solving real-world problems. You'll see when you go around to the different tables, each module starts with a story and a real-life problem that these 3 kids are trying to solve. And they go through very structured, begin with activities that are very structured, but then as they progress, it gets more loosely structured and then not really structured at all, and they have to use all the knowledge that they've gained over the previous activities to solve a problem. And with 2nd grade, you're seeing one of the second activities, I think, in the unit, and same with in 3rd grade, but you're seeing the culminating problem in 4th grade. What we see as teachers is the collaboration among the kids to really problem solve and persevere and show some grit. And they have a lot of fun too. So it's really been neat to work with all of them. They really rise to the occasion. We have 1st graders working on tablets, watching a presentation with a partner and taking notes. 1st grade. So really great stuff that's going to give them skills for the rest of their science years here. And I don't know if you want them, Mrs. DeBrito or Mrs. Colella, to get up to the different, oh, you're going to show this.
We're going to do our video next so you can see it in action. I'm going to turn the lights down so it's easier to see. Let me know when you're all set. Ready?
At Booth Free School, students become real-world problem solvers through the district's new science initiative for kindergarten through the 4th grade, called Project Lead the Way. Led by Marianne Zoller, students are guided through a structured approach using the engineering design process in which they employ critical thinking.
I think in this case it's going to be about 9.
This helps them understand how the knowledge and skills they are developing in the classroom may be applied to everyday life.
What did you write for yours?
Nice job.
Learners apply science, technology, engineering, and math knowledge and skills, as well as habits of mind, learning that it is okay to take risks and make mistakes.
And then this part's a pulley, so you can make the pulley go up and down with the lever, and it can go down and up, but it can also tip. Lever and pulley.
A lever and pulley. Which simple machines do you have?
I have the lever, wheel, and axle, and the pulley.
In the first grade, learners explore light and sound through multiple activities.
Most of the light on Earth comes from the sun. The sun is a natural source of light.
The goal is to solve a problem for several lost hikers using the tools available to them. Following an in-depth exploration of maps, second grade students investigate the different forces that shape the surface of the Earth and design solutions to limit the impact of erosion on a fictional community. Design engineers in the third grade read about and learn to build several simple and compound machines. Students then design and build a device to rescue a tiger, all the while learning more about real-world problems and solving them as a team.
Handle and this one can make it go up more, and if you want it down more, kind of.
Project Lead the Way is a resource ensuring all learners experience next-generation science standards, including engineering and computer science practices. Students are empowered with skills, including problem-solving strategies, thinking critically and creatively, practicing how to communicate and collaborate well with others, and experiencing how to persevere when something does not work the first time. Each of these valuable skills become the foundation for the learning they will do moving forward.
And we're going to invite the board to please travel from each grade level, each station. Feel free to ask lots of questions.
Can you tell us what you're building?
Simple machines.
Yeah. Like this?
Well, with Project Lead the Way, what's great about the work with the VEX kids is they will watch a video that they can pause and it tells them to get the materials up. Wait till we get to, and they can manipulate the screen so they can see a top view, a side view.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. Take them to the part where you can get to, because this to me was like, so it gives them their inventory list, what they have to get. All right, so just pause that for a second and manipulate it.
Well, it's a little bit very cool.
Yeah. So, like even the second and third graders are manipulating this.
I like it.
That's amazing.
I like it a lot. Look at that.
So Jocelyn, why don't you show how you test the earthquake?
I'm going to.
This is a fun one, right? Yeah. I bet you like the earthquake.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Needs to be a bigger
Is it too wet?
Yeah, it's
Well, we can
too wet.
think about it.
Last time it went up. The water will probably.
Well, also-
If it's wet, the water will probably work then.
Why?
Because if it's already wet, it will probably get wet, and then it will favorite one fail. And then it will start to be wet and will fall apart.
Right, so Jocelyn, why don't you come in right?
How much? No. Can we write how much it would usually?
Well, we're only doing the test right now. Well, think about it. Every time you do the test, you might have different results.
Yeah.
All right, Frank.
Why did you focus on science increase
steepness of the incline.
You can answer those too, because that's your group.
We wanted to have a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you weren't satisfied with the lesser?
So what happened when it went down the ramp?
It bounced.
It bounced, right?
Yeah.
I think I need that on the front of my car.
Okay, so Arla, come show us what you've got here. And then Owen, you go last.
I made a car, and it has a seat and a bumper, and yeah.
And yours was one of the first designs with a bumper. And then I think other people observed your idea and thought that was a good one. So she inspired some other builders, she and her group. Give it a show. So we saw the potential energy change to kinetic, and then it bounced at the bottom, transferring some of that energy through the bumper, protecting the passenger. Okay, now show us yours, because your design is a little different.
I wasn't satisfied with having such a small space to work on, so we put bigger sides on it. We put 2 more pieces so it would make it bigger, wider. And then with our wheel, we also weren't satisfied with that, so we put pretty much like an extension on it. So if it hits the wheel, then it will just bounce off. And then we also added cotton balls there to when it hits so it doesn't smash into the front. And then we covered the egg in bubble wrap, and we put a tire as a bumper.
So let's see how this works.
Done. Okay, Gertie.
Wow.
Is that all of it? Yeah.
So what do you think the water is kind of like in nature that you just poured? What does it look like in nature outside? What kind of erosion?
Just like
There's nobody pouring big pieces of water outside, so what do you think's going to give you that same look?
Make sure you have a chance to see the other. A landslide?
A landslide would do it from rain, right?
Yeah.
Very good. You just kind of made your own mini landslide there, right?
All right, so Grady, you can pick it up and measure.
That seems to get the most erosion, didn't it?
Yep.
Now, is that the same that we had before?
It's about the variation of traits in flowers and plants.
And what was the problem for Farmer John?
Some of the stems were purple and some of them were green, and he didn't know why some of them were purple and green.
And over here you have
The Vex kit, and all the stuff is organized with a label.
what are they for?
And it's so you can make the simple machines over here.
Oh, wow. Did you make that machine?
Yeah.
Wow.
And show them down under the iPad and turn it on.
Is this also what was took place last night?
Just push it again. No, they didn't use it. This is
Very modeling. Was it hard to make that?
That was the hardest one.
That was a hard one. It looks like there's lots of parts.
A lot of parts, Very good.
Their ultimate activity was to design a vehicle restraint system that would protect their passenger.
Protect the egg.
And that would be a raw egg. They're not hard-boiled. Just to keep it interesting, right?
Keep it real.
Keep it real. So throughout this unit, they've been introduced to energy, potential versus kinetic, and the transfer of energy that occurs during a collision. So the initial thing that they read about were kids at a bumper car at a fair. So then they had to look, they designed a pendulum and they used the VEX kits that you've seen on the other table. We used the exact same kits to build the pendulum and observe where the potential energy was greatest and the kinetic energy was greatest as the pendulum swung. So then they went to design a vehicle. They had to create a vehicle and then design a restraint system to protect the passenger, the egg, our fragile egg. And they had a first attempt with an incline that was much less of an angle than this one. So they recognized that height and speed impact the collision. We talked about types of collisions, but it's interesting that they all came up with different designs. And they were allowed to test it and then revise it. We were really using the engineering design process, and you can see they really were able to go full cycle on this and then repeat it, because after the initial trial, a lot of them went back and redesigned. And as they saw other people creating their cars, they thought, oh, you know, Isla was the first one to put a bumper on her car, and then they all went, oh, that's a really good idea. So you'll see the bumper passing in a lot of different ways. So then they upped the ante, increased the incline of the plane, and the wall remained the same. So they just increased the height of the plane. Well, yeah, they weren't going to settle for anything less than a real tough trial.
Like the seat is padded so the sharp edges on it wouldn't crack the egg.
Okay.
And yeah, and there's rubber bands holding it in so it won't fly out.
All right.
You know, the high school where I teach, the high school students do an experiment in physics class where they drop their eggs from the roof.
Yes.
And they have to design something to save their eggs. Do you think they can do it? Do you think you could design something
I think at this point
to
they
save
look like a couple good ideas.
save the eggs? Yeah.
Let's see. Wow, excellent bumper.
Yes, it's a really good bumper, and you notice that the wall moved. So let's move the wall back.
But they're true engineers when you're That's a 9 and 10-year-old, you know? It's amazing.
Well, you know what's amazing? I feel like it's really up to the ante for then like the middle school, high school. This is the kind of stuff they could do, and now because they're going to be like, what's that? Except they're going to have to push it. Yeah. Which is exciting.
So it'll be interesting to see, 5th grade is going to start Project Lead the Way next year. Theirs is mostly robotics, so it'll be interesting to see what that's going to look like as we roll that out too.
A real paradigm shift for a lot of people. Because we all want to do that all the time. To celebrate.
That's the thing, it's not a mystical thing. It's all around you every day. You just need
On the swing set.
And the nice part about it is kids can make a mistake and that's okay, you know? And so what did you learn from that mistake and how could you make it better so that maybe your first egg broke, but although none of them did.
I know, which sounds shitty, actually.
I know, because you would want that impact to say, well, what kind of impact was that? But, yeah, it's pretty interesting.
This is great stuff.
Yeah,
I'm really,
it is
really glad to
wonderful.
see it.
Wonderful.
So we just want to, I'm going to get good parents.
Boys and girls, come on in and let's sit for a minute.
I just want to thank all the families who let us enjoy watching your children showcase what they've learned. I hope the board
Yes, we
learned
hope
a
the
little
board
bit about
enjoyed
our
it.
Project Lead the Way and science program and how the kids are gaining great skills that they're going to bring with them really to all facets. Project Lead the Way encompasses not only science and engineering and computer technology, but reading and writing and communicating and collaborating and presenting. So it's really comprehensive, and we hope you enjoyed it tonight. And thank you, students and families.
Good. All right, the next item on the agenda is public comment on agenda items. Seeing no one, I'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any comments, questions about the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Now, for the board chair's report, very short tonight. I would encourage everybody, if you haven't looked at the digital learning videos that have been flying around the Ethernet this last week, you should. They're great. It's kind of like what we just saw this evening. Really just encouraging, especially with the one where the student with the, I was going to say News 61, but our news channel, saying that, she's found what she wants to do now, and so to me, those are the home runs that you get to see. So please take a look at the videos; they're great. I know I've shared them with a few members of the community, and asked them, especially those who aren't that close to the school and don't appreciate what we do, what you do. So I've been pushing them out. So keep sending them. Pat?
Okay, great. And I'll just piggyback on that. I want to thank Colin, because Colin is the one that puts those videos together. He does the voiceover. He goes to the schools. He is just unbelievable. He did the video tonight. Colin, we're thrilled that you're here. Thank you. He was at Minds in Motion all day on Saturday. And he also is taking over the sound. He's being trained on that at the high school because our music teacher had left, excuse me. So we're thrilled to have you, Colin. Really, great job.
Thank you.
Excellent. We'll continue with, we have retirement, Rosemary Armini, guidance counselor at SVS. I do not have how many years she's been here, but she's been here a long time. I'm not sure. I have to find out. At least 15. So she's retiring and moving to Texas, where her kids are. So we're very excited about that. We have Amy Thayer, a science teacher, who's having another child. I'm happy to say we have some good news tonight to share. First, we have from CABE, we received an honorable mention, which is like second place. In the newsletter, district newsletter that Karen put together with the help of the administrative staff and the teachers. Who was on this cover, Karen, to help people?
Okay, I gotta go back.
Yeah.
It's, last year, it's the White House Film Challenge.
White House Film Challenge on the cover. So, Kate, we're very happy. Soon we're going to win first place, but we're really very excited about that. Congratulations, Karen. Did a great job. About that?
Yeah.
Sure.
I just want to say that I saw the one that won first place, and it did not look better in my eyes. I was not impressed. It had more pictures, but it was not more beautiful, so just FYI.
We do a really great job, and the next one's coming out in the next week or two, right? It should be here very soon. And wait till you see the cover of that one. It is amazing. Colin got that, and it's a secret. I'm sorry. Okay. Secret. I'll do my conference highlights in a minute. I want to let you know some other good news. We received word today that we are now nationally recognized and ranked 33 in Connecticut by U.S. News and World Report. We have a bronze medal. The data for the 2017 rankings is from 2014-15 school year, which is where we really started, if you can recall, doing a lot of work with SATs, PSATs, College Board, more AP courses, and we're working with U.S. News to certify the award and determine where we've improved to earn the honor. So we're very excited about that. I know the board has gone to ask more awards, and so,
Well,
yep, it's going to be great.
what was the ranking?
33rd in Connecticut.
That's high schools or school districts?
I believe it's high schools.
High schools. Okay.
So that would be 33rd out of roughly, what, 250?
243. 243, around there?
That's fantastic.
Something like that, I'm not sure. But it's good. It's good to be ranked. We normally aren't even ranked. And nationally recognized, so, yeah, very good news. Congratulations. I wanted to let you know, I think I brought it with me. I did, but you have to promise to give it back to me. You only have one copy. I don't know how many of you have seen the Washington Living magazine. It should be mailed probably to all your homes.
Melissa.
But Karen also has Karen has a great relationship with the editor. And so we have a wonderful article in here on Chicago Regional School District 12 taking a STEM focus, some great pictures and a great article. So I'm going to pass that along, and you can see that. So great job. You mentioned Digital Learning Day, so I will not. I do want to let you know that we have kindergarten registered for 2018-19. Booth free, we have 12 students. Burnham, we have 3, and WPS, we have 11, which right now is a total of 26 students.
19 are booth free, you said?
No,
What'd you say,
booth free 12.
12.
Burnham 3. WPS 11. Okay. I want to also let you know that the Panorama Survey is going out for parents and students in March, so look for that. Minds in Motion, we had such a fabulous day on Saturday. We had 200 students, and only 35% of those families and students were from our region. So that was 140 kids from out of our region. And I can't tell you first of all, how wonderful the program is. Julie King and Paula Conway and Michelle Manafee and Brooke Faison put together a great program. It's our 3rd year, and they're volunteers, and they really have it now, a well-oiled machine. And they just do everything from soup to nuts. We had great coverage. I don't know if you saw the article in Republic American. So it was just a wonderful day. I asked Julie if she would come and do a presentation, and we'd have Colin put together a little video to put together some of the workshops. But it was just an amazing day. And it really is not only about the program and the kids and creativity and innovation, it's about promoting Region 12. And to see the parents sitting, in the lobby, reading and on their laptops and talking to each other, on our beautiful furniture, while all their kids are in workshops, it really is very nice. Cave Day on the Hill, right now, Michelle, myself, I think Karen and Kim are going. If anyone wants to join us, it is Wednesday the 7th. My AASA highlights, my conference, I did give you 2 handouts. So it was a great conference. It's the National Education Conference for Superintendents, and this year it was in Nashville. I always, because I'm a member of the governing board, I always go one day before because we have legislative agenda, and I've included the one page to give you an idea. And we're divided into 7 regions. And so I'm in Region 7, which is Connecticut, New York, and New England, all of that. And so the things that we're really focusing on is school funding, which is, so important. Social and emotional learning, and also the burden of proof with special education, which we probably have to wait for the reauthorization of IDEA. Then the conference started. There were 3 keynote speakers. 2 really stood out. The first one being Doris Kearns Goodwin. You've probably seen her on TV. She's a presidential historian. She was fabulous. She's a little thing. She has to stand on like a box behind the podium. She is big Red Sox fan, and before that, a Brooklyn Dodgers fan, and feels that she learned the art of storytelling by having to relate the stories of baseball to her father after every game, not realizing that it would be in the paper the next day. President Obama, who liked to surround himself with smart people, and people who maybe think differently, would meet. He asked Doris to get together a group of presidential historians, and they would meet sometimes once a month, sometimes once every 2 months, and they would take they'd all be a different president, not dress them, but come with their point of view, and Obama would put a problem out on the table, and they would address it on how would FDR handle this, how would Abraham Lincoln handle this. It was very, very cool. She talked about the insights and universal qualities that make presidents great. She didn't speak too much about our current president other than that someone should just steal the phone, and that would be very helpful for him. The other one who I really wanted to see, and I'm so glad, he was the last part of the conference on Saturday, was Sal Khan from the Khan Academy. And he's just inspirational. He has so much influence around the world. And he's just a guy who, we all use the Khan Academy. Hopefully you all know what the Khan Academy is. I literally tell almost everybody I know who's a teacher or a principal, do your kids use the Khan Academy? And it has curriculum on there for all different areas. He got started because his cousin in Miami was having problems with calculus, and so he was tutoring her virtually, and she loved it because it was taped, she could see it, she could stop him and re-engage. And she started sending it to other people, and pretty soon, like all these people were following him, and he says, this has potential. And he's all over the world. He had some wonderful stories about how he has impacted people in, Africa and Asia who have no, access to education. And he's really trying to provide a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. And it is also available for adults. You just have to go on. I mean, he has things on financial planning and all of these different cool programs and curricula you can be part of. I attended a session on millennials in the digital age, which was very interesting. I attended a session on empowering women leaders, which is a passion of mine. I think it's so important to be a role model for young girls, be a role model for women, push teachers and administrators and help them to aspire to be more. So that's always something that I love to hear, and the superintendent from California was great. And the last thing I'll just share with you, I thought this would be very interesting to bring back, because I know eventually you are going to start a strategic plan. And we heard from Massachusetts. They had someone from the Department of Education and one of their superintendents who I happen to know. And this is their district planning process. It is all online, but it really has some clear, precise strategies and on how to achieve what you need to achieve. So I made copies of just some of the pages. I think create, align, implement, create a plan, align the systems, and implement your progress, and and then you continue that. But I think the second page has some really good information about the definition of terms and just a one-pager. The second page is a really one-pager. And it just has some really good insight. So I thought it would be something good for people to digest when you start to think about the plan. And the website is there where you can get a lot more information. Massachusetts has a very good education system. So I thought that would be beneficial for the board. And with that said, I think the only thing left on my here is to introduce Kim and Barbara Lenkis, who are going to talk about safety protocols. I do want to let you know that this is really routine for us. We're always thinking about safety. We're always practicing safety protocols. Each school has a plan. Our administrative team has done tabletop exercises. And so it's something that we're always working on. And we are continuing to work on, but this is really the first step. We will continue with more after this, including some recommendations on things that might benefit the district.
What happened in Florida raised a lot of conversations, as it well should. It raised conversations for me with some students, some parents, and so forth. And so what we tried to do was to focus some communication to parents and to students on what would help to reassure and also to reinforce what we do. So that's what our plan was. Basically, my piece in our presentation was the reassuring piece, and Barbara is reinforcing our procedures and showing the expertise that she bears in her position each and every day, which was very, very effective. Parents, it was very well received, and those that were in attendance were also very appreciative of the time that we took to do that. So I began by talking about, first of all, the fact that while an incident, of course, brings awareness into our minds in a very immediate and unfortunately frightening way, this is part of our regular conversation. What are we doing? What can we do better? What should we be memorializing so that everybody understands it? There shouldn't be anything that we do that if any one of us is out on a given day, people don't know what to do. So that's how we focused our conversation. And more importantly, I think that parents continually need to hear from us as administrators that we have a plan, that our kids understand the plan, that our staff truly understands the plan, and that we are building that muscle memory in their children so that in a crisis, you have an idea about what to do. It might look a little bit different in different crises, but they understand that these are the safe places. These are the people you follow. This is when you're quiet. This is when you really pay attention. We do all of those things, and for my part, I wanted them to know that their kids feel very confident in talking with us. Between Matt, the counselors, me, Barbara, students come to us with concerns about their friends, with concerns about themselves, with just a general worry, and we follow up on that. We follow up on that in a way that continues to respect privacy and the dignity in our students, and I think our students understand that. I explained to parents that when someone comes forward with information, they can be assured that it will remain anonymous, and that there's a good side to that and a bad side. It's great when your child is scared, you want him or her to be able to report to someone and to be safe and have no one know that he or she is the person that did it. It's very unfortunate when it is your child and we say, I'm sorry, I can't tell you where I got this information. I don't act just on one person's information, but I can't tell you where it came from because kids have to feel safe reporting to us. And parents understood that, even though we all understand that it could be very difficult. Last but not least, we got some good ideas from parents about it, and I've given a list to Dr. Cosentino. We're developing some things as a result of the input that we got, but one thing that I'll tell you that we're looking into is an anonymous reporting online system, which is, it's called Anonymous Alerts. There are others, but this one I've been able to vet in a very good way. And you can dial into this. You can, you're on your computer. This is how old I am. There's no more dial-up, so you can ignore that word. You can get on your computer and you can go through this app and you can say, Mrs. Gallo, I'm very worried about Mr. Cava because, you know, he's so upset with me and I'm afraid that we're going to get into a fight. And I get this one all the time, not necessarily about Mr. Cava. But you know, I'm worried that we're going to get into a fight, and I need some help with that. And that gives me the impetus to either talk to a counselor or whomever. And parents needed to know that their kids feel confident in doing that. We're going to follow up on it, and we're going to keep them safe. So that was, in general, what we were talking about in terms of the reassure piece. And Barbara was able to be very, very clear about reinforcing our procedures and what we do, and she was even more well received, and I really appreciate that. Our SRO, Barbara Lenkis.
I'll stay over here if it's easier for you.
Yeah, that'd be great, thank you.
Do I need to speak into this?
As long as you speak up, just, it's fine.
I'd rather just speak up. Okay. Okay, I'm Officer Lenkis. I'm the school resource officer for the region, as you all know. And Mrs. Gallo asked me, after speaking with Jen actually, about having a parent forum. So I put together a very small PowerPoint just to kind of guide me to talk to the parents about the things that we do on an everyday basis. Because after Florida happened, of course, everybody is concerned about their children, which you have good reason to, because schools have become a target. And I wanted to just reassure parents that we hardened that target, or we try to harden that target every day by the procedures that we follow. So we'll just go right on. What I did initially is I talked briefly about basic crime prevention. Crime prevention is basically what crime will happen. Crime flourishes when there's desire, ability, and opportunity. I have no control over the desire of the bad guy, the ability or capabilities of the bad guy, but we do have control over the opportunity. And by that I mean the opportunity, our vulnerabilities, we have control over those. So that is my job as your crime prevention person, being your SRO, is to control the opportunities, limit them as much as we can. And in order to limit these opportunities or control them, we would need to do several different things, and they're in the police world, they're the 4 Ds, and it's deter, delay, detect, and deny. And I'm trying to do this quickly because it took me about 45 minutes to do it with families, but I know we're on a time schedule here. So under deter, I kind of went into more detail with parents, but well-maintained school appearance, having the appearance that we keep up our school isn't a deterrent for somebody to come in and do bad things, such as criminal mischief, you know, spray painting or things like that, breaking windows, because we maintain our properties. Police presence, having a vehicle outside certainly is a deterrent for somebody to do something bad inside of a building. Visitor screening, we have the Raptor system where we scan the ID card or the driver's license of visitors into our schools. It checks against the sex offender registry. I've never had one, well, I had one hit, but it was just a similar name or a common name. It was not somebody on the sex offender registry. Every year I check the sex offender registry for the 3 towns just to see if we have somebody or who we have, and then I just make note of that. I have that list. I think there might be 2 altogether in all 3 towns right now, so nothing to worry about. Positive reputation, that's another way of deterring any criminal activity, and we maintain a very positive reputation. Just the words that you're talking about, Dr. Cosentino, there's always something that is happening very positive in this region. So we are doing an awesome job at the deterrence part. The only thing that I would say is the police presence. I am one officer, and I just want to make this clear, I'm one officer for 4 schools and 3 towns. That is my biggest challenge, and I just need you all to be on board with that. That is my biggest challenge as far as a deterrent in that way. Delay, this was more geared toward Chippewa School because we put on the forum. So at Chippewa, we have the uphill driveway. It's serpentine in nature, the way it curves, so it slows down any vehicular traffic. I do assessments every 2 years on each of the schools. I'll talk a little bit about that. as we go, but I do have recommendations for the other schools that don't have that benefit. We have locked doors. In all the elementary schools, for the most part, I have no problems with that. Unfortunately, in the high school, sometimes there's a little more movement. So, but this year we have gotten, Don O'Leary has really helped me out with fixing a lot of doors where we don't have anybody having to prop things open. We don't have broken doors anymore. And when I let him know, he takes care of it pretty quickly. So we'll go with detect. We have video surveillance cameras. We have over 100 cameras in the region, over 75 at Chippewa High School itself. Each year we have gotten more cameras. I have lots of views. I have access to all the camera views in my office, and on my cell phone I have an app. So when I'm home, if there's something going on, and I also get the alerts when there's fire calls or medical calls, through another app. So if there's anything ever at our school, I'm always looking at it, at the camera. So that's a good system that we have. The state police do have access. Sometimes we have a few problems with passwords, but I know at the Washington Resident Trooper's Office, I was able to get the Chippewa Valley School cameras on it this week. The door buzzer system, all of the schools have the door buzzer system. Chippewa now has the pool door, has the buzzer system, so we're allowed to let somebody in that way. In the years past, we've had high school students who wanted to go run out to their car, get something, so they'd prop that door open. No longer do we have that problem. We actually even fixed the door where you can't even pop it up anymore because we can buzz them back in. The Raptor system, again, that is the system that Mr. Geeson had ordered several years ago, and we use it to give all visitors a pass. And student and staff awareness is a way to detect. And I do get calls from the schools. I know Washington Primary School, there was somebody walking along the property line, and they called me, and I was able to go out there, and it was somebody who was walking. She was actually from New Milford, so not familiar with the fact that she was really close to school property when she was walking the path. That's just one example. I've had the gym teacher let me know that there was somebody out on the field once and, going out there. So having staff members and even students who are aware, and not just aware, but let me know that there's something going on. Because if there's one pet peeve I have is when somebody is aware of something, whether it be a rumor or not a rumor, and they talk about it amongst themselves and they don't share it with me, I have a big problem with that. So if anybody, and that's something I stressed, I think, during the parent meeting, is if you have something to tell me or you're concerned about something, please contact me. My email is alankasb@region-12.org, just like everybody else's, my last name, first initial. So I will always answer those. Deny is the last part of our crime prevention, denying any access. That's refusing entry. You have to buzz in, you have to be buzzed in to be allowed into the school. These are some things I'd like to tweak though, because we do have recommendations. Some of these things are a little bit easy because we have become relaxed in this area, because you do have a nice area where you don't have a high amount of crime. But this is something that we have to get better on. Lockdown procedure. We do, lockdowns, we're mandated to have fire drills every month, and every third fire drill, every third crisis drill needs to be a lockdown shelter, secure school, one of those. So, and that's mandated in the school's Connecticut General Statutes, year 10-222. I'm used to 53s and 14s and 21s, but you're all 10, and I'm learning your statutes and trying to get the elements, and I read them, and I have it highlighted, and but I always have to go back just to refresh my memory. But I do know that you are mandated to have these drills every third month, and we do have a lockdown. The elementary schools, they basically have theirs scheduled. I work with the secretary and the dean of students at Chippewa to make sure that we keep ours up to date. And we do a good job at these. I would like to do these with a little more I don't know what the word is, but more seriousness on the part of the staff. I need their help with that because when I do have to do these drills, I know they take away from the schools, you know, your learning time and what needs to be done, but I need extra time for these drills for them to be effective, because if we just do a lockdown, everybody, okay, lockdown, shut your door, close your blind, okay, they pull on the door, okay, it's over, that's it, no conversation. No conversation to me is a problem. After that drill, after each one of our crisis drills, I need staff members to talk to the students and take an extra 5 or 10 minutes to talk about what you might do, because we're good at that muscle memory, like Mrs. Gallo said. We have muscle memory with these, where we know what to do initially, but there's more than initial. There's more than an initial response. And I know that everybody's concerned that it takes a little time, but the people that were in Florida were there for hours. The students in Columbine were there for many, many hours. Some died waiting. So there is something to be said about spending a little time with doing these drills with a serious mind. And that's what I ask. That's one of the things that I would ask that we get better at. We talk about barricading, flight or fight. And these are the second and third steps that might need to take place in the event of an actual situation. So these are things that we need to talk about, and those are ways of denying criminal activity to happen to our children and our staff members here at Region 12. What we do at Region 12 or at Chippewa, but I know at all the schools, is we lock doors, we lock windows. We have phone lines in all of the rooms, and that's something that is new. We didn't always have that. So anybody can call 911. What I'm asking is that every one of those phones can access a PA system, because the bad guy isn't necessarily coming in through that front door, and it's not necessarily the secretary that's going to call you into a lockdown. I need everyone to have access to be able to call a lockdown. Buzzer system for access. We have the buzzer system at all of the schools. We have the Raptor system at all of the schools. We have video surveillance cameras at all of the schools. We identify the visitors, and on the Raptor system we can actually put where they are going. That Raptor system, another thing that I forgot to mention, is actually I have access to the Raptor system at all the schools. So at any given time, if there was a situation here, I would know who is at Booth Free School, who are the visitors at Booth Free School from Chippewa, or from my own phone I can log in. So it's very important to use that system, because I know who is extra at the schools. And like I had already talked about, conducting the mandated fire drills and crisis drills. Those are the things that we do at Chippewa and at all the elementary schools. We maintain the all hazards security and safety and security plan, and all of the schools, and this is mandated also through Connecticut General Statute 10-222N, and that is a plan. It's an all hazards plan, and it addresses many different situations. It's kind of generic in the base plan itself, but each school has their own appendices that are more school specific as far as what they do in the event of an emergency. Mostly what it covers is our lockdown drills, our shelter in place drills, what specific instructions for the teachers to follow in the event of an actual emergency. There's also relocation plans that we have been working on more this year, or more these last year and this year. And what we need to do is we need to practice these things. We did have a relocation drill at Chippewa last spring, and what we did is we had a situation where we said the building, there was an earthquake or whatever it was, we all sheltered in place. That means move to the safe place in the school. Different than a lockdown where you're hiding. Shelter in place is you're going to a safe area in the school. And then we made a second announcement and said that the building is unsafe, it's been deemed unsafe, and we need to evacuate. So we evacuated out, and then everybody had to get into their emergency evacuation bus area. And so it was quite a process, but we were able to do it. It was a beautiful day. I was exhausted from running from the front of the school to the back of the school, trying to get everybody, make sure that everybody was, where they were going. But at the end of the day, and it took some time, it probably took an hour, which looking back now, that's not really that bad. But for the amount of students and how everybody evacuates out of the high school and the high school, middle school, they're out in the front and the back and the side. So we had to gather them all, and they all ended up way in one of the fields, and they were in their bus groups where if we did call in the buses to have them evacuate, they would have done it. So we went through the whole process. So it's really important that we have these plans and that we use these plans. The plan also uses the command structure, command center structure, which is just so that everybody knows who their job is, who has a job, and what they're responsible for. So that is in the plan for us. And also talks about the same thing as the statute does, that each school must have a security and safety and security committee at each school. We also have to have a safe school climate committee at each school. Those can be combined. They can be the same people. The only difference, and I'm sure you're aware, is the safe school climate committee, if there is something that you're investigating and it has to do with a child, then a parent on that committee cannot be involved in any of that. They can't have that information, again, for confidentiality reasons. So we also are responsible, the Board of Ed is responsible for those assessments like I started to talk about earlier. Every 2 years, the Board of Ed must have a security and vulnerability assessment done on each of the schools. I have been doing those for the past 3 years. I've done 2 already at Washington Primary School in Chippewa, and I've done 1 at Booth Free in Burnham. This year is Booth Free in Burnham again. So this is something that I've just kind of gone online to figure out how to do these assessments. I have copies of the assessments. I forward them to Dr. Cosentino at the end of the year after they're done so that they can be filed in accordance with the statute. I did talk about at the parents meeting, I may be a little biased. It wouldn't be a bad idea to get a company in to maybe do an assessment, an outsider looking in. I think that would be a good idea. I called the Department of Emergency Services, and there's a unit there that does school walkthroughs. So I have an email into them to see if they'll at least do a walkthrough of our schools to give me an idea. And I also forward them our assessments for last year for Chippewa and Washington Primary School. So I'm hoping to hear back from their supervisor and see. And then that shouldn't be a cost to the region, but it's just something that I would like to at least have considered. And again, I talked about the school-specific appendices. So we have a plan in place. Everybody has it at each school, and as long as we're practicing and taking a look at those. Also, each teacher has an emergency packet, which has all of the instructions for what they're going to do. And I know at the elementary schools, they put those together. I recently put one together at the high school that's a little less wordy, and then I put everything in a shared drive for the procedures that are a little bit more lengthy. But the quick reference procedures are very handy for the teachers at Chicago. Okay, and the Security and Safety Committee, each school has one, and there's no time frame on how often they have to meet. At the elementary schools, I know that Mrs. Judd and Mrs. Kalala have them pretty regularly. At the high school, because I meet a lot with Mr. Parachi and Mrs. Gallo, and when there are situations going on, maybe whether it's a bullying situation or a situation where there's mean behavior in the school. So we're always constantly meeting, where we don't necessarily have to have a set meeting, but we have had tabletop meetings with our safety and security committees. And this is a good opportunity to, see what kind of response we would have to different situations. So on our committees, what you're mandated to have is a law enforcement official, a first responder, teacher, administrator, mental health professional, a parent, and then any other person that you might deem important to be on that committee. And we have one at each of the schools. Accountability. Accountability is really important to me. That's my another pet peeve, is knowing where everybody is all the time. So that is always a challenge. Maybe not so much in the elementary schools, because each student or each teacher has their own class, Burnham School's a little different now because they've combined classes, but they have a smaller group to work with. Once you get into middle and high school, now you've got kids changing classes, so accountability becomes more of an issue. So it's really, really important to maintain that accountability. At the high school, they have attendance is taken in the morning. I get an attendance report in the morning, and then each class there's an attendance, and then in the afternoon, a second attendance report is sent out. So they're making sure that they're accounting for students throughout the day, not just the morning attendance. We have a white pass and a yellow pass system at the school. White passes for the seniors who have earned that privilege. I'm not sure what the criteria is to earn that privilege, but if they have the white pass, they're able to come in later, they're able to leave earlier, but they have to check out with the office. We need to know if you're here or you're not here in the event of an actual emergency. We need to know who we're looking for and who may not even be in school. The yellow pass is another way of students leaving the building, whether they have to go to the parking lot to get something out of their car, or they're taking photos with one of their classes. They have to have the yellow pass, and they have to sign out in the office. I have asked that they not only sign out at the office, but they sign out at the front desk where the door monitor is, because they have access to the camera, and they can just be aware that a group of students or a student is out of the building for that time. So that's just an added responsibility that I'm hoping that we can enforce. Students must sign in and out at the main office whenever they use those passes. Motor vehicle stickers. The students that have their driver's license and they are wanting to drive on campus, they need to come in, show me their license, and I will give them the sticker. They get the blue sticker at first when they first get their license, and they cannot have passengers. After a year, they can have passengers, and they get the green sticker, and that's a really big, exciting thing. But it's important for them to for us to account for the vehicles in the parking lot. Staff members get a red sticker. So if there were an emergency or if there was something going on, we had an unwanted person in the school and we had law enforcement, coming all over the place, all over the campus, they could at least look in the parking lot. And if somebody does not have one of those stickers, and it may be a parent visiting, but they're going to start running those plates that don't have stickers. So it's just one way of accounting for, okay, these cars have stickers, they belong here. Not to say that it wouldn't be a student that is doing something there. It's just a way of accounting for the vehicles that are in our parking lots. So it's really important that they do that and that they keep those up to date. And they're very good at getting their first sticker, and they're pretty good about getting their green sticker when they're ready, but usually now I'm starting to get the green stickers in because the seniors are turning 18 or they've had their license a year. But if they don't, there was a time when I would go out into the parking lot a year and a half ago, and there weren't stickers on the cars because they were forgetting to get their sticker, and they didn't really mind. So I asked that I could take it over, and so I can go out to the parking lot and just see if we have everybody with their stickers. Mr. Prachi will stand out at the end of the day, and at the beginning of the year when we were really pushing that everybody got their stickers, we were watching the kids as they were coming out and stopping them when they didn't have their sticker. It's just another way to account for the people that belong on the campus. And the lunch periods, that's another time at the high school that's different than the elementary schools. Well, not so much, because actually I've been here for lunch and the kids are in here and then they're outside and they're all running, and it's a time as a police officer in, this day and age that you're like, there's just so much, there's vulnerability all over the place. But Burnham School is one that I wrote up, I definitely for the assessment, but that area where the kids run around on the hardtop out there, you could drive a car right around the back of the school and get there. That makes me cringe. I want a wall, I want bollards, I want something that protects those children back there when they're playing. I mean, if you've gone back behind Burnham School, it's just wide open, and the kids are out there playing, and it's something. So lunch periods everywhere, not just the high school, is a time when I, get a little bit more stressed because there's kids everywhere. They're not with their teacher. okay? They're with whoever is responsible for monitoring that period. So that's a time, that's the only time that I would say our accountability I need help with. So I need either more staff members, maybe at the high school, but it's just a time that we're vulnerable and we need to be aware of that. Nothing really I could say positively about that. And lastly, if you see something, say something. That's how I ended it with the parents. And the sooner you see something and say something, the sooner we will take care of it. Whether it be, you know, a door that's broken, I'll call Don O'Leary, he'll send in the locksmith. Or whether it be a student that wants to hurt themselves or somebody else, or it's somebody who is, you believe is using drugs or something like that in our school, then we need to know. Even if they're using drugs outside of our school, I'd like to know. And we would like to know so that we can help. We're a family here in Region 12. I feel like this is a region that is very close and willing to help anyone. Everyone is willing to help anyone here. So I just hope that we can continue that. And I really need for everybody, if you hear something that's going on that's just not sitting right with you, until we get that new app where you can anonymously report it, I ask that you do report it to us as soon as possible, because there's nothing that I would want to see happen and you knew something and you decided to keep that to yourself. So,
and we close the presentation by directing the parents back to the letter that I sent home to all of the homes that had a couple of good resources about how to talk to kids after a tragedy. And it stressed you know, some very key points about talking with the kids, reassuring them about what makes them safe, and then getting back to a normal routine. That is also a very important point in when you're talking to kids who are in crisis or who are grieving. We've seen these articles before, but we reinforce them again. And last but not least, and those of you that are parents have heard me say this many times, I said, you know, 99% of my conversations with parents start with the words, "I'm sorry to bother you. You are not bothering me." Even if you're not telling me something that I really want to hear. That's who I am. That's my job. And I said, if you're not sure who to talk to me. I will be there. I will get the information to who needs it, or I will handle it myself. We'll talk about it. And so that's what we really wanted to stress, was that we would be accessible to students and to parents. And we're going to continue those conversations with student council. Right now, student council is taking a lead role in our response to this crisis, as it should be with older kids. Just that we're here for them, we care about them, and we know how to keep them safe. And that is our intention to do so. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to do that. Yes, thank you, sorry.
All right, I don't know whether it creates any issue that this is being taped and is being, I presume everything you say, you don't care is being taped, being posted on YouTube so the world knows.
No.
But if I ask a question, you can't answer it without having to kill us. Just please feel free to not answer. But one thing that scared me to death after the thing in Florida that happened was the way in which the perpetrator pulled the fire alarm to get kids out into the corridors and to get them off out of their classrooms. Is there some kind of protocol or way to approach that? I mean, do we no longer exit the building when the fire alarm goes?
If we're in a lockdown situation, and we have talked to staff, if we're in a lockdown situation and then the fire alarm goes off, if you do not see a fire, see smoke, smell smoke, you need to stay put.
Right, that's what I understood the situation to be. But the question, I guess, is in this case, I think when you walk into a building and you blend in with the students because you were one of them at some point,
exactly.
That must be hard, because then you don't have a lockdown situation. Is there any way to defend against that, or are we thinking about?
Well, what the teachers did in Florida is yell really loud for the kids to get back in and then hid them. There would have been more than 17 people if that hadn't happened, and our teachers know to do that as well. Some of it, we're never going to come up with every single protocol. I met with the faculty on this today, and one of the things I said is that a lot of this reminds me of the air raid drills we had when we were kids. Some of you aren't old enough to remember that. You know, here we were sitting under a chair as though that was going to help us with a nuclear blast. But it made us feel like we had some kind of protocol in place. We have protocols in place. Please don't get the message that we're about as safe as kids under the chair. But we do have protocols in place. We do get kids thinking in ways that keep them safe. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about this. There's no way we're going to come up with every situation, and God forbid we have to use them. But we have them thinking in certain ways, and we have them thinking together. One of the things that impresses me the most when we do lockdowns is the state police will come and they will walk around our hallways and kind of check our procedures and stuff, and they'll bang really loud on a classroom door, like, "Let me in!" And I want to open the door. The kids know, you don't get up. They haven't identified themselves, they haven't slid ID under the door. That drill doesn't end. Even when they know it's a drill, they do that. And that impresses me, because like I said, as I'm walking around with them, I want to say, geez, open the door, he's yelling really loud.
So it's all about denying.
It's
Deny,
that's
yes.
right.
And
That's right.
thinking about fight or flight, because there may be a way to get in those doors, okay? And I want them to think beyond the first step. The first step is take cover. Take cover, quiet, listen. Do I have a way out? Can I get out of here? That also is going to be at the discretion of the leader in the classroom, the teacher or whoever it is that takes the lead role in that classroom, and it may be a student. And they need to, and this is why I ask that we do more during our lockdowns, and that is having those conversations. It's not just a hide and wait for the person to come, you know. And we are fortunate at the high school that we're one level. There's no jumping out of a second or third floor window. We can egress out of every single one of those rooms. But you need to be looking where you're going next. Is it safe to go there? These are things that need to be thought about. It doesn't end at the lockdown that we do on a routine basis. It needs to be discussed more. And that's what I ask that the teachers do with their students in my emails after, is that you have these discussions. And through those discussions, the teachers come to me with, you know, this student mentioned this, so I know they're having these conversations, and I know Mrs. Gallo had students come to her asking her questions. So, and I've had I've had a lot of people coming to me after the Florida incident about what are we going to do to change our procedures. Our procedures are muscle memory, where I want them to respond quickly, like they do. Lock those doors, get hidden, and then think what you can do next. And that's what we have. That has to be what more of our training has to be. And I said something to a teacher actually today who said something to me about that our lockdown drills are not efficient, that President Trump said our lockdown drills weren't efficient. And I don't get into politics with that. But I said our lockdown drills are efficient for muscle memory to respond quickly. And our students respond quickly. We had a drill at Washington Primary School, and Mrs. Judd and I talked about this. When I was on the second floor watching as she called the drill, and actually a student closed the door. At first, I was concerned that a student closed the door, but then afterwards I thought, that's exactly what I want. If the teacher is at the front of the room, not near the door, I want that student who was in third grade to pull that door shut. And that student did exactly the right thing. So at first I thought, oh, that student's too young. I don't want them in that vulnerable position, but I know that it's working. I know these drills are working, and it was proven to me that day. So after that first step is what we need to continue with as far as our training. And what I said to that teacher today was, you have professional development days, and those aren't just thrown on you, right? They're scheduled, right? So you have the time. So maybe our drills can be scheduled a little bit more, and I know it takes away from the surprise of it, but let's do a crazy drill that everybody knows about, and there's no test, there's nobody asking me if, you know, how long is this gonna last, and I have this going on and that going on. We will schedule, and we will do it over and over and over for an hour until everybody has all the answers that they want as far as the students and the staff members. So that's something moving forward that I would like to do.
Thank you.
Well, this sounds kind of surreal, but since it has become part of the national debate, And you sort of alluded to the fact that you're one person with 4 campuses. How do you feel? What's your position or professional opinion concerning teachers or other staff being armed? Arming other staff in a school.
I don't think it's really in the board's, I don't know what we can do with that, John, as a board. It's not something we're going to decide as a board. It's much bigger than, I mean, it's an interesting question, but I really don't think it's for the board to consider, to be perfectly honest.
It is part of the national debate.
A lot of things are part of the national debate, but we've got to decide, where and how best to use our time. And I know first and foremost, what I'm very much interested in, I believe so is the board, is that, as was said before, everything that is in our control, we're controlling. And let's start there. And then we can fan out and decide, well, what's the next conversation we can have while what we do control is secure. So I'd ask that at least this first round of debate and discussion that we focus on, are we doing everything we can be doing? Should we be doing more? I thought you might be asking, as one person covering 4 campuses, is that enough? Should the district be considering making an additional investment in another SRO to help? I don't know if that's even, but those are the kinds of things that I think the board would like to hear.
If you're asking me that, then I say yes. I say that I am one officer in 4 schools in 3 towns, and to add to that is I'm on Troop L, and then there's also a Troop A. There's 2 different radio frequencies, so I'm not hearing. So my recommendation would be, initially it was have door monitors at all the elementary schools, but to do that in the 3, that's $11 times 3, that's $33 an hour. You can get an SRO for that price, and you have another officer for 2 schools on a Troop A side and 1 officer for the Troop L side, and there's never a missed call. And if you needed something, I would be able to get to Troop L instead of switching over to Troop A and then trying to monitor Troop L and Troop A. So if you ask me that, I think that is the best answer to help with this situation. The world is not getting better as far as school safety. There are a lot of things that, there's a lot of different reasons that it's happening, and I'm not going to pinpoint what it is. But if you want to increase your safety, then I would say yes, I would consider a second SRO.
And I'd like to, obviously, not now necessarily, but hear the administration's recommendation as well on this subject and what we can do. I have another question for Alan. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, while we're on the subject of budget, a parent who is an EMT and volunteers at the fire department in Bridgewater called me and talked about the bulletproofing of the doors in the classrooms. Now, obviously, we have issues with all the windows and walls in general in some of these older buildings, but just knowing that there's often the danger of even getting to the door to close it, and when you're at the door, closing the door to secure the room, you're liable to be shot through the door. And he talked about either having even a Class 3 lighter weight stick-on material that you can use for doors, which is rather expensive, or even doing 1/4-inch steel, which might be less expensive, but then you have to replace all the hinges. But the idea is, in order to secure our doors, or at least make them be able to stop a high-velocity bullet, there's a budgetary suggestion there. Would you think that would be valuable for us to consider as well while we're thinking about these things, or is that secondary to some of the other issues we're already dealing with?
Well, primaries are the first perimeter is the outside, and that's the main entrances and the windows. Before I'm talking doors, I want the perimeter. I want the exterior of our building as hard as possible. And if you know, we're talking, what do I want? We can do, what is it, Arizona that spent $400,000, which is a little extreme with the spraying. But any measure to make your target harder, of course, I would say yes to. But my priority would be the exterior of the building first, and that is the windows and the main doors and secondary doors as far as vestibules that are doubly secure, and controlling the access. Not letting people in.
The outside in as opposed to.
Right.
The one thing I would just also answer you on, Alan, is that remember that in the high school, most of the walls in the main resource area are a lot more porous than those doors. You basically have something the equivalent of sheetrock. That's just not going to stop. In most of those situations, not going to stop anything. And so the problem is once you get inside our buildings, the way they're designed, they're going to vary from building to building as to how hard you can make it. And so I think the perimeter makes more sense. The other thing to remember is that when we replace the windows at Chippewa eventually, we're going to be replacing those with egress windows. So you have the ability to egress through the window, because our building is not fully sprinklered. And as a result, you have to have egress windows. You could eliminate that if you wanted to sprinkler the building, but you know, $2 million later, you'd solve that problem. So again, you got to draw. It's very sad, but in everything you do, you have to decide how much based on the risk, and that's the hardest decision you have to make. And when you harden the one target, you just replace the target. The target becomes the bus stop and not the school. And so it just moves until you know. So that the question is, how far do you go? But I think the kinds of things you've talked about make a lot of sense. And I'd like to issue an invitation to come to the Facilities Committee and talk to us about this at some point in time. I think that would be terrific, because we'd like to at least be aware of the kind of things we might want to be thinking of. I know Don is on top of a lot of those things, and you meet with Don regularly.
Yeah, Don's my partner in that kind of thing.
But we definitely would want to just get our heads around the kind of thinking that we need to do when we're thinking about replacement of these pieces of the building.
Michelle, you have a question?
It's actually more of a comment, kind of. As I went to the safety presentation that was done on Wednesday, which was wonderful, and we had a great turnout. And I've been thinking a lot about the school board's role in the safety of our children. And because it feels to me that curriculum and all of this other stuff, if we can't guarantee the safety of our children, then what are we doing? So it's been really forefront in my mind. And as we think about what the school board can do, the first obvious thing is the safety of the schools, the procedure, the equipment. We've done a lot. We've spent a lot since Sandy Hook on doors and video cameras and an SRO and stuff. So we've been doing our due diligence and moving in that direction. But something that was really brought up to the forefront on Wednesday falls under the mental health realm. And Kim talked a lot about the students in the building, because for the most part, the threats come either from within or from somebody who was recently there. And they talked about students who are feeling alienated. And what was interesting to me is the Prevention Council was also at that safety meeting, as well as the entire guidance department, because it is so important that we are really keeping an eye on our students and making sure that we're touching base with anybody who's feeling alienated or depressed, because not only might they become suicidal or might they turn to drugs or alcohol, but they might turn to violence. And so that's like our first line of defense. And we're doing kindness programs in our elementary schools, and we're really working on this. But I think as a board, we need to understand how important that work is. So we need to recognize the role of our guidance department and keep it in full force. We need to look at the programs that the schools are doing and support our schools in what they're already trying to do in identifying these students. And I worry too about us being so small. It's so easy for a child to not find their people, you know, in a class of 30, you know, if they're not sporty or they're not, you know, don't fit into the groups that are available, and how do we help them find a place to be so they don't turn that teenage angst into anger or alienation. So I applaud the work that our schools are doing, and I feel that as a board we need to support those efforts in staff and program, because that's really, I think, our first line of defense. And the only other...
In our school, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
In our schools, we have so many layers of adults that reach out to kids, and I'm thinking about from the time when they go into the cafeteria, our cafeteria ladies will let me know or let Matt know if a student doesn't seem to be eating, so that we call home and make sure, is there a financial problem? Is it something that is happening in the kid's life, so on and so forth. We have our cafeteria monitors. You know, Matt knows, he can pretty much tell you who sits at what table. And when those things change, and sometimes they do, or when students are seen alone, we approach them, or he says to the guidance counselor, stop by the cafeteria, talk with this kid. They don't seem to be having a very good time in the cafeteria. In the hallways, you know, it's very, very frequent to see teachers talking with kids on a different level than they do in the classroom. The kids know Barb, the little middle schoolers that come up to her and hug her right at her gun belt. You know, I mean, that wouldn't happen other places. It just plain old wouldn't. And they do every day because they're thrilled to see her, they know her, they relate to her. We reach out to kids in ways that are different than other places. Because we can, because we have so few kids. So that's the good news in this. And again, I'm not going to lie to you, I can never pretend that we know exactly what's going on, and we always will, and we can always do exactly what needs to be done. But boy, I'll tell you, we really do try.
The only other thing that I wanted to add, I feel like there's sort of three prongs to this whole thing. You've got the building, you've got the students, and then we have sort of the political realm. And I know that CABE and CAPS have both had press conferences asking for legislation and for the legislators to take a look at this and put it back on their agenda. And I just feel, you know, I don't know that the school board necessarily needs to make a statement, but certainly I would like to see us support our students in any of their efforts that they feel that they need to go through as they explore this topic, because I know a lot of them have been talking. They've been talking about what they can do, and they see students speaking out. They're exercising their call to citizenship, and I think we should support them in that. So that's all.
I absolutely agree with the disconnect, and I talked about it because I'm on the Prevention Council, and we had a meeting right before the meeting on Wednesday, and it's very similar. A child that turns to drugs can just as easily turn to violence, and for the most part in all of these situations, there's a disconnect, like you said. So it's like we need to connect the dots, you know, and these dots here might have this in common, but one of these dots can connect to that. We need to have the students, even though it's small and you can easily lose that one because he or she just does not connect to any of the other dots. We need to be more aware, and that's part of what I'm talking about, is the awareness, and say something, and not just about a violencing or a drug thing. If there is a student in the cafeteria, you're absolutely right. The ladies in the cafeteria are awesome. They are right on with a lot of things, and they're listening, and nobody knows they're listening. Same thing with custodians. Nobody knows they're listening. The cafeteria staff is much better at reporting. Custodians kind of, you know, do their things, but if you ask them, they will tell you. So everybody needs to be aware. We need to connect the dots. I agree. Yes.
Some schools, I understand, have a policy where they keep the classroom doors locked all the time.
That's what I want. Yes, and that's our policy, is always locked. We changed doors because of that, door knobs, door handles, so that we could have like that little.
So is our policy to have our doors locked all the time?
All the time.
And how are we doing against compliance?
If they don't pull them closed, then they're unsecure. So in the problem at the high school is if one is unsecure that attaches to the library, you've got 4 or 5, classrooms unsecure. So I will lock them and I will talk to the teacher. That's how I address it, is I remind them that their doors are locked.
And there again, it's the exterior doors that are critical to those little groups of things. You can't really lock
every
one's
door is an
interior.
exterior door. Every door, either from the hallway, the high school or middle school hallway, or through the library, you can access. There's no hidden classroom that you can't get to without, coming in from the library.
No, that's true, but you have doors between classrooms
Right.
in there. And
Right.
those can't
They
be locked.
don't lock.
Because they're ingress, egress doors.
Right. And that, we did have several suggestions, and what I did was have somebody, Harry, the custodian, he made some wooden wedges, and this will be at the discretion of the teacher in the case of an actual emergency where they cannot secure those interior doors. They can use these wedges if they feel that there is imminent danger to their room and they need to wedge that door and leave another way. So I just got those today from Harry. I asked that he make them, so he gave me a whole bag of wedges. And I will have the teachers pick them up from me, and we'll talk briefly about how they are not for every lockdown, they're not for every situation, because they can deter egress from another classroom in the event of a fire, or that the threat is at the other door and they need to come through their room. So it will be at their discretion, and again, a lot of things will be, there's a heavy weight on a teacher in a classroom in the event of a situation like this, and I can't change that, but I can give them tools to use as they see fit, and one of the tools is going to be those little wooden wedges that they can have access to, and if they feel that they need to wedge that door that separates them from, Mrs. B's room, then they may use it. That's, without making it something permanent or something definite.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, we have a motion from the Burnham PTO to use the school for a Cinco de Mayo auction. Subject to, waiving the policy prohibiting beverages from the evening. Greg, you usually have, please.
Thought I might as well make the motion. I move that we waive the policy for the prohibiting alcoholic beverage service for the evening of May 5, 2018 for the Burnham School PTO, subject to the usual requirements that no alcohol be served until the students have all left the building, and also subject to the appropriate insurance and other requirements that we have in our policy.
Okay. All right, motion's been seconded. Are there any questions? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Greg, you still have the floor.
All right.
Please, on the ag step.
Well, Bob is not here tonight, so I'm going to attempt to present the financial picture. I can't claim to understand this, but I will do my best, only because I'm not an accountant. But the one thing I'll tell you is that you want to turn to, like all good government forms, you want to turn to page 2 if you want the story. If you look in the right-hand corner of the bottom of page 2, you will see that of the $1,895,000 we had originally thought would cover these categories, we have we've crossed the halfway threshold, and we will, after tonight, have spent, I believe it's $1,087,468 was where we were prior to that, and we have authorized payment of another $221,110.23 tonight at the building committee, primarily for architectural and other professional related services, actually all professional related services. And so that's where we are in terms of the finances. If you have any specific questions about any of the line items, I'd be happy to try. But one of the things that we're doing is we're matching the contracts against the payments and getting a sense to make sure that we can track everything back. And so that's one thing that we're doing. If no one has any further questions about the finances, I'd be happy to move on to the status. All right. We are at the point where we are virtually finished with the schematic design and design development stages of the project, and we'll be moving on, probably authorizing at our next meeting in 2 weeks, we'll be authorizing the architect to move on to the construction documents phase. Construction documents phase is the phase at which the project is designed to the point where it can be put out to bid at the end of the construction documents phase. And so that's really where we are. We are moving along with it, we expect to get there. As far as tonight went, we have now, Chairman, after this meeting, will execute the second and third amendments to the architect's contract. We have a fourth amendment, which does some cleanup work, which we'll sign as well. There's no money involved with the fourth amendment. It just simply adds some missing information that didn't exist when the contract was originally drafted. We're trying to keep the contract up to snuff in terms of expressing what the deal is. And so we have resolved any issues there, and we're ready to move forward on that. And tonight we saw something which I hope I will be able to present to you at one of the next 2 meetings of the board, which is we saw the architects present us with a little bit of a walk around, almost a drive around the exterior of the buildings of the addition, the buildings where we've done renovations, and the additions, and also the animal equine building and the greenhouse area. So they literally had a video driving around what that's going to look like, looking at some. They're getting finer and finer, more refined on the exterior treatments of the buildings and how they're going to appear. And I'd like to show that to you at an upcoming meeting, because I think that's very illuminative of where we are and what the process will look like, and how the buildings will lay out. Some very nice work there. And then I think probably finally, what I wanted to, I wanted to also report to you that we have received back the signed commissioning agent's contract, so that's now in the works. And the commissioning agent will be interfacing with our people now in order to make the project work, better and perform the commissioning agent's function. And then finally, I received an updated, but I'm not going to give it to you or email it to you because it's going to be further revised tomorrow. But I received an updated schedule. And that updated schedule calls for a start of construction date of October 1st, 2018, and a delivery of the Ag STEM portion of the project by August 14th, 2019, and a delivery of the full science lab and greenhouse end renovation. We're actually going to have renovated in the science labs in stages. Some of it will be done for the August date, and some of it for December 19th, 2019, with the removal of the temporary partitions by December 30th and closeout of the project, which is all punch list and everything else completed by the 25th of February of 2020. So we are holding the schedule at this point. We are in the various approval processes, and so that's the schedule. And I also received an updated site plan and some information on the building. Very little has changed, but they have done a better job. They've made some tweaks to the north end addition, which will give us a much better robotics classroom in the corner of the building, and the graphics lab, these will lay out much better because they've removed the reception area and director's office from that part of the building and put it back into the Ag STEM area with a few tweaks. And so it's a little bit better planned. So minor little tweaks like that make it better as it goes along. And I think that actually, I could be wrong, but I think that might reduce just a little bit of the square footage that would have been devoted to the Ag STEM renovation of the north end. I have to get a confirmation of that. So that's really where we are. That's the update. Any questions?
So June is when we'll go to bid?
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me, we will have, we will commence bidding. We expect to commence bidding for, we actually have two bidding phases. One of them is early on. It's actually, in April, where we're bidding for some abatement work and demolition work. And that'll be approved by the state, and then we'll go to bid on that. The second item would be bidding on the majority of the work for the Ag STEM project and the Science Labs additions, and that will occur on the 26th, around the 26th of June, currently scheduled for the 26th of June to commence Phase 2 bidding. And that process will be concluded probably by, with the awards of contracts probably by, if I'm not mistaken, the middle of August. So, and then we will commence construction October 1st. After certain other mobilization and other things are done to be prepared for it. So yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for Greg? Okay, Alan?
Yeah, the start date has slipped from July to October, but obviously the finish date hasn't. Has there been a lot of work to compact and compress the construction schedule, or do we have assurances that we actually can finish by the same completion time that was predicted when we had a start date of July 1st?
Well, the construction period has always been about a year and a third. And because the project has been put into some different phases, if we start October 1st and finish December 19th or December 30th or what have you, it's a little bit compressed. Part of it depends on how quickly we get through the next phases of the project in terms of moving things along with permitting and our meetings with the state. So if we can move that stuff along faster, we can get to this. Also, the other thing that's dependent on bidding is we need the construction document phase finished. And the fact that we are about to start that phase imminently, I think is a good thing. The other thing that's kept us up to snuff in terms of getting things done is that even though we were going back and forth on the contract additions with Castle Booze, they kept doing the work. And so that was helpful to us because we didn't lose a lot of time in there. So I can't tell you if they've further compressed the schedule. Probably they've compressed it a little bit, but they're very focused on getting us delivery in time to open in the fall of 19. They understand that that is a hard date.
Okay. So we've gone down from 10 months, well, from over a year to 10 months. So I'm just hoping that that's actually
well, yeah, but you may be comparing a little bit of apples to oranges there because certain things don't take a full year to complete. And the other thing is, don't forget that there probably was built into the original window of the contract the demolition and remedial work. And so that's really starting in much earlier. The contractor mobilization is in May.
Okay.
For that, so that work is, we're still going basically June to December. It's still roughly a 17, 18 month beginning to end process.
Demo and abatement as soon as school's out there.
Right, pretty much that starts as soon as school's out.
That's the overlap. Great, thank you.
And Greg, at least for me anyway, the solution for the temporary science labs. I know you talked a little bit about that the last board.
Oh yeah.
When would that? Do you think that will be settled in terms of what course you're going to take?
Well, right now we're pretty certain that what we're doing is we're going to leave the existing chemistry lab in operation throughout the renovations. So we are not creating a temporary lab. The chemistry lab is the only lab with a hood, with a fume hood and a full water and gas, and that will remain throughout the period. We're going to have a little bit of dancing around to do, because we're going to have to figure out how to supply heat and ventilation and air conditioning to that room, because the air handler for that will be removed, that currently handles it will be removed when they start the construction on the rest of the science wing. So we're going to have to rehook it in through the library. There are going to be some things like that. Some of this is going to require the expenditure of some funds. The other air handler that's a problem is the one that serves the north end, because once they start demolition of that north end, it's going to cut off the ventilation to the graphics and what will become the robotics room. And so as a result of that, we're going to have to, Don has been working with them to create an alternative approach. Do we put a temporary air handling unit? Do we move one of them over and then get rid of the others? It's going to be a little bit of a dance here and there. And there are going to be a few things like that we're going to have to do while we're under construction. But we've pretty much resolved the issue of not having to provide a temporary science lab with hood, with ventilation, air and gas, water and gas. So we won't have to do that. So that will save us a considerable amount of money of what we were originally looking at for that. And the other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to make, if we're moving something around, like for example, we're going to have to remove the 2 kilns from the north end of the building so we can do the construction up at that north end and put the robotics into that end of the building. The idea is when you move something, you move it to its permanent location. So we're not moving it twice and we're not inefficient. We're trying to be efficient like that, and that way you get to the point faster of resolving your issues at a lower cost. There's something else that we are also considering, which is at the end of the job, which is we may ask for an add-on cost to engage our own contractor to do certain kinds of approval review of the project at the end, so we don't have to wait for the state to do that. And it'll get it done faster, we're told by our architects tonight. We're told that we'd get it done faster, so we'll have the final piece of money, the return of the retainages, another final piece of money faster. So we're thinking through various aspects of this to try to figure out how we can compact the entire process to get to the point where we have all of the state reimbursement at the earliest possible date.
Thank you. Any other questions, Greg? No? Thank you, Greg. Michelle? We have a second reading.
All right. If you go to open your packets, policy 0521, non-discrimination. You have 2 versions in your packet. Just the green is the latest version. The green were the changes suggested from the first reading. So this is the policy that talks about access to the buildings and not discriminating. And we chose that for the last sentence of that first paragraph. The district provides equal access to all, example, Boy Scouts, designated youth groups. Boy Scouts must be included because they are actually included in the legislation. So that was the recommendation of the board from the first reading.
Any questions? Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Michael. All right, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain. Motion passes unanimously. Second reading of policy, use of physical force.
Okay. This is 5114.1. Both copies were included. I'm just scrolling down. Where did my head? Okay, if you scroll towards the end of the policy, you'll see a little green phrase. This is what the board requested after the first reading. It says the board shall cause the superintendent of schools to maintain a list of all the members of the crisis intervention team, because it used to read that the board shall maintain. That was the only change from the first reading that was suggested. If you wanted to see the additional language going from the old policy to the first reading, that would be all of the yellow language. if someone wants me to explain that, I can, but we did it all last time for the first reading. So I think what's really important is to just note the green language, which was the suggested language from the first reading.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move we approve for second reading.
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, any further questions, discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes unanimously. Use of physical force. Thank you. Move to adjourn. There's a second?
Second.
All right, so moved.